going on, everybody? Welcome back to the ILLMented Reviews. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, episode 8 here on the ILLMented Reviews, and I've got a special one for you guys today. We're going to do a double feature. I generally only do one film at a time, but it's like a little mini box set from Arrow Video here, and I thought, why not just combine both the films, considering they are, they're related. They're related. So the box set in question here is The Road Cops and Racketeers, two films by Enzo G. Castellari, with my man, Fabio Testi in them too. Every time I think of Fabio Testi, I always think of What Have They Done to Solange. I love that movie. He was also in the third film in that trilogy, Red Rings of Fear. Fabio Testi was also in a couple Fulci classics too, as the spaghetti western For the Apocalypse. He was also in Contraband, which is like a really gory crime film that Fulci did like in 1980. He was also in Revolver with Oliver Reed, which I love that movie also. But Enzo G. Castellari, man, when I think of Castellari, the first thing that comes to mind is Inglourious Basterds. Of course, Quentin Tarantino also did a film by the same title. It's not related. He kind of took the title and did his own thing. But yeah, Inglourious Basterds, he did that film. He did Street Law, which is a fantastic movie. The Last Shark with Vic Morrow, which is a fantastic movie. Rest in peace to Vic Morrow. But I really, really love his Bronx Warrior trilogy films, man. Enzo G. Castellari, total journeyman of Italian cinema. He worked in spaghetti westerns. He did Chioma, which is one of the most classic films. Cold Eyes of Fear, which is a giallo. Of course, he did horror films, post-apocalyptic films. Very, very wide range of movies. And then, of course, in the mid-70s, he did a film called The Big Racket, which is the first film that we're going to be talking about today, and the second film in this box set, which is the Heroin Busters. But yeah, Enzo G. Castellari, man, very, very kind of almost underrated Italian journeyman director. Like I said, worked in so many different types of genres and stuff, and had hits in all of them, in my opinion. Not so much in the giallo portion, but Cold Eyes of Fear, it's an okay film, but it is what it is. But the first film in question here today is Fabio Testi in The Big Racket. This is the reversible cover art here. Yeah, from 1976. So getting into the plot of this one, basically Fabio Testi is he's a police inspector, detective, and he starts investigating this crime wave. It's basically this group of kind of like low-life degenerates. They're like terrorizing all the local stores and shop owners and stuff like that, basically extorting money out of them in exchange for protection. They're kind of pulling like this mob type thing. Anyways, so he starts to investigate this. He arrests a few of them, but he can't seem to get anything done because they keep getting off. And he's getting really pissed off, and there's a bunch of things that are happening. One of the shop owner's daughters gets violently raped and stuff, and then there's a few other things that happen. Anyway, so he kind of takes things into his own hands, and his supervisor says, you know what? You can't be doing that shit, you're fired. So he gets actually fired from being a police officer. So he's like, well, he rounds up his own type of crew, and he goes after these guys kind of vigilante style to stop the terrorism of this degenerate crew. Gang is what they call them, really. So anyways, that's the synopsis of the movie. Now, my thoughts on this one. Fabio Testi's fantastic, man. He's got one of those faces that you can just never forget. He's great as a police inspector. He's believable as a vigilanteist. But I love the storyline in this film, man. It clips along so well, and it incorporates all these characters so well into the crew that he assembles at the end to go against this gang, basically. There's a couple really vicious rapes in this film that are kind of nasty. One involving kind of like a young girl and stuff. It's pretty nasty. Another one where a woman gets raped and then dude pisses on her and shit. It's pretty crazy. And then burns her alive. So there's some pretty nastiness to this. There's a lot of great shootouts, a lot of squibs. There's a really great fight scene in this film in a restaurant that is very reminiscent of something you'd see in a spaghetti western. It's fantastic. There's this really great scene too where Fabio Testi's character, when he's a police officer, gets rolled by the leader of this gang. down this hill in his car, and he gets all fucked up and shit. And I love the way that thing was shot. But what really makes this movie great is really the pacing, that there's always something happening. There's always something happening with this terrorist gang. They're always like in a local merchant shop or whatever, and they're always terrorizing, and all the shit's going down, and it's great. The character development's great with these characters too. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, the action is fantastic. Like, we got cars blowing up here. We got, like I said, a lot of shootouts, which involving a professional skeet shooter. That scene is fantastic. It's such a great scene because, like, he's having this shootout with, you know, this gang, and all of a sudden this dude randomly shows up, starts taking people out and shit, and he's like, oh, thanks for your help. It's just fantastic, man. It's really, really great stuff. But like I said, you know, the characters are great. There's some really great characters in that really kind of make up the storyline so well. And you just feel for them too, man, like what's happened to them and how they're being extorted. They can't afford it and stuff. And of course, people getting raped and killed and other things. And there's other various reasons why some of these characters get involved. Actually, the dude, what's his name? I think I might even say on the back here. Yeah, Vincent Gardenia. He was actually in Death Wish. His character is very, very essential to the film here. And I love his character, man. It's fantastic. But it all comes down to this great violent shootout in this, like, mob kind of based warehouse, like, way out in the industrial site kind of thing. Really cool stuff. There's a lot of like, character actors in this film that you recognize, but you just don't know their names. It's like every Italian film that I watch. There's so many people that are in random films. I'm just like, I know that guy. There's actually a guy in here that's in the first Bronx Warriors film. Joshua Sinclair, I think his name is. He looks identical to what he does in that movie to this one. His name's not on the back, but yeah, he's pretty cool. But yeah, The Big Racket, man. If I had to rate this one, man, I'm coming in at a 9.5 out of 10. This is one of my favorite crime thrillers, police chitsy films, however you want to pronounce it. I know I definitely said that wrong, because I always do. I always joke about that on the podcast. I can never say that word properly, but one of my favorite Italian crime films. Fabio Tessi's fantastic. I like how he goes from this kind of nice guy character to, like, Rambo style, I'm gonna fuck you up type thing, because, you know, we need to take back the city from these low-life gang members and shit. It's pretty cool, man. I really like it because they don't call this gang the mob, even though they're doing exactly what the mob does, you know, extort people for money for protection and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. They're kind of like second-rate, like, street-level thugs, but it's pretty cool, man. Some really, really great scenes throughout the whole movie. I just can't get enough of this movie. I've seen it a few times in the past, but watching it on Blu-ray, I was like, shit, this thing looks fantastic, man. It's great stuff. So, The Big Racket, the first film in this box set, excellent, excellent stuff. It's almost a masterpiece in my opinion. Great action, great pacing. The music's great. Great acting, characters. There's really nothing wrong with this one. Yeah. So that's The Big Racket from 1976. On to the next. All right, so next up here in the box set, we've got The Heroin Busters from 1977. So this movie was obviously filmed probably around the exact same time as The Big Racket. Considering, you know, he's got Fabio Testi once again in it, and Joshua Sinclair is also in this film. And I think there's like another guy that's also in both films too. I just can't remember his name right now. But yeah, this one right here, of course, stars Fabio Testi and David Hemmings. When I think of David Hemmings, the first thing that comes to mind is Deep Red. Deep Red is one of my all-time favorite Argento films. I actually just recently watched David Hemmings in a film called Fragments of Fear from 1970 in prep for the 1970 show. That's a film that I really wanted to rewatch before we did our top 10 list. I never got a chance to. I know Indicator, Powerhouse, they released it on Blu-ray. I'll have to pick that up, but that was a pretty decent film. He's also in Thirst from 1979, and I just recently watched Harlequin from 1980, and that also has David Hemmings in it. That was a rewatch. I hadn't seen that movie for years, so just a lot of David Hemmings lately. Of course, a British actor. Yeah, The Heroin Busters from 1977. Quick synopsis on this one. Basically, Fabio Testi plays a character. Fabio Testi plays a character named Fabio in the film. Of course he does. And so he's an Italian cop. who's basically working undercover. He's trying to crack this pipeline of drugs through these multiple countries. Actually, the beginning of the film kind of starts out with this really cool montage where they show like all these drug deals happening in different spots in the world. Where some are like it's like in America to Hong Kong to Colombia to Rome. I think in Amsterdam and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of got like the same type of concept as the Big Racket, where it's showing the gang going through and, you know, basically pushing their way into getting money, extorting money out of people and stuff. So that was kind of cool how they did that. But yeah, so he plays a character named Fabio. He's an undercover cop. And he's working with all these type of people and stuff. And then in comes David Hemmings, who actually is an Interpol agent. And they end up having to work together because they're kind of on the same case. They're both trying to crack this pipeline of drugs throughout the world and stuff. So they start working together, but they have to kind of pretend like they're not working together, obviously, and stuff. And there's a bunch of sequences like that and everything. And basically, it's just these two agents trying to crack this drug trade throughout the world and stuff. So that is basically the synopsis of the movie. Now, my thoughts on this one. This movie's a little bit slower. Like I said, it starts out really cool with this cool montage of like all these drug deals and all these things happening throughout the world and things like that, accompanied by an amazing Goblin score, which I think is really awesome. I really wish the Goblin score was actually in the Big Racket movie. I think that would have been awesome, but it really does work for this type of movie. This one's a little bit slower. There's a lot of development with characters, with Fabio Testi's character and, you know, all the people that he's infiltrating and all the other drug dealers and stuff like that. And then we finally get introduced to Joshua Sinclair, who's kind of the head honcho in the drug trade and stuff like that, it's a slow process. A lot of back and forth with David Hemmings and with him and characters and things like that. So the first like 45, 50 minutes of the movie's a little bit slower. It's still interesting. It's well done. It's shot well. Like I said, accompanied by that Goblin score, really kind of helps out. And then it gets into the meat and potatoes in the last like 40 minutes of the movie, where we get a pretty cool, we get some shootout scenes. And what really kind of sets this one off, and upon rewatch, this was like really the only scene I really remembered from the first time I watched this film, was the end scene, which I found out now. There's a really cool kind of Cessna plane chase. And I found out that Fabio Testi actually did his own stunts there. He was a licensed pilot and actually flew those Cessna and did all those stunts and shit. I'm like, man, that is the type of shit that you would never see today, having your film doing things like that, because that's pretty crazy. Because like one wrong move in a Cessna, boom, you're dead. Like it's pretty scary. And when you watch the stunts, you're like, damn, it's edited cool. It's not really doing a lot of craziness, but it's edited well and it kind of works for what it is and stuff. But it's still really cool to see like somebody like Fabio Testi doing his own flying stunts and stuff, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, like I love Joshua Sinclair and pretty much everything that he's in, man. Like he's in Escape from the Bronx, or Bronx Warriors, actually. I think he's just in the first one. But he always plays this like mean, maniacal character in like every single movie. He just got that perfect look and stuff. Same thing here, same thing. It's definitely, if I had to compare this to the Big Racket, it's definitely a couple steps down. Like I said, it's a little bit slower. There's a lot less action. There's a lot less violence in this one too. Like there's some gun shootouts and things like that. There's no squibs. I was really kind of taken back by that upon rewatching this, and I was like, shit, man, watching the Big Racket, there's a lot of squibs. There's a lot of blood. There's just a lot of violence and stuff. A lot of graphic violence with the rapes and stuff, but you don't need the rapes in here. There's actually a very oddly placed lesbian sex scene in this film, which is kind of funny, just kind of comes out of nowhere. But yeah, the violence is kind of toned down in this, which I thought was interesting just due to the fact that they were shot pretty much the exact same time, like 76, 77. Obviously with the same people and stuff, but it's just a different type of film, and it has the potential to be like that too. There's a lot of characters in this film, drug dealers and things like that. There's just a lot of moments where it could get pretty crazy, and it really doesn't, which is kind of its downfall. I think if they had to up the violence a little bit, if Enzo G. Castellari had to up the violence a little bit in this one, I think it probably would have been a little bit more exciting. Just given what the narrative is in this, you're dealing with drug dealers. I think the funniest thing about the film is Fabio Testi's character, Fabio. Just the way he's dressed, it just looks so ludicrous. It looks like he looks like a cop who's trying to act as someone who's trying to infiltrate the drug trade. Like you know that as a viewer that he's doing that, but it's funny when you really look at him. You're like, who the fuck would dress like that? It's just so bizarre the way he's dressed and shit. It's hilarious, but Testi's awesome in the film. He puts on another great performance here. Like I said, he's got one of those faces that you love to root for, man. He's that dude, man. I love Fabio Testi, and now that I know that did his pilot stunts and shit, I'm like, damn, that's really crazy. So But overall, it's a decent watch. It's nothing crazy. It's not even comparable to The Big Racket. The Big Racket is pretty much almost, like I said, a 10 out of 10. The only thing is, I think the score is good, and that's pretty much why it kind of took off half a point. It's not like my favorite thing, but man, if it had the Goblin soundtrack, shit, that really ups this film. It's still a very solid film, good performances. David Hemmings is really good in it. He's kind of crazy in the film. Like, he's always losing his shit and blowing up and stuff. And I like David Hemmings. He's a good actor, man. He's a good, versatile actor. So the performances are really good in this. And I'm coming in at an 8 out of 10 on this one. So still a great film, but just not as good as The Big Racket. You know, I mean, it's still a great Enzo G. Castellari film, man. The guy's done so much good work. I did cut away to show the special features and stuff, but I will name off what's on here. It's pretty much the same on The Big Racket. The Big Racket has, you know, it has a commentary and it has an interview with Enzo G. Castellari, and it also has interviews with cast members and things like that. So commentary, a few interviews, and it's kind of the same thing on here. There's a commentary with critics on here, then there's an interview with Enzo G. Castellari, and then there's a few video interviews with Fabio Testi, things like that. So you guys will see it on the cutaways and stuff like that. So, but I do highly recommend this box set. It's really good. Both films, great. Enzo G. Castellari, if you've never seen any of his other films, definitely go check out some of his stuff, especially the Bronx Warriors trilogy if you like post-apocalyptic Italian films. That's a great trilogy to watch. A couple of them have Fred Williamson in them, so you can't really go wrong with that. But yeah, great box set from Arrow. Highly recommend this. And that's going to do it here for episode 8 here on the ILLMented Reviews. I will be back with actually another set very, very soon, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the review. Leave comments down below. Give it a like if you want. That's all you gotta do. Really helps out. It helps out the algorithm, man. The algorithm sucks, because if you don't get the comments and likes, man, your videos just don't do shit. So anyways, I digress. I'll take you guys later, and as usual, deuces!